good, folks? Welcome back to the Furnished Mind. And remember, Christ is King. Today, we are going to live react to the testimony of a former OnlyFans star.
I was a pastor's kid. It started slow. I started OnlyFans. I made like $85,000 the first month.
What was it about you that was able to make $1 million a year?
My biggest thing that I sold was that I'm multiple girls. I put all of that energy into creating Nala.
How much money do you have at this point?
$9 million. My parents kind of disowned me.
That sounds catastrophic.
Sorry. I've never really dove into that feeling.
Yeah.
Never talked about this. What's the point of all this money when I don't have feelings?
Is that the moment where you say, all right, I got to start getting out of this thing?
I was sobbing. I was looking at my fireplace. I grabbed the Bible. I was like, God, I need an answer now. I truly need an answer now. And he gave me an answer.
What did he say?
Actions have consequences, but no judgment. Let's listen.
One of the underappreciated aspects of temptation is that it's very tempting. Money, sex, fame. My guest today is someone who has had all of those things in spades and then came to regret it and totally cut it all off. And that would be one of the top only performers, a former only performer, Nala Rey. Nala, thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you, Michael.
So I'm not just saying this to seem like goody-goody. I actually am unfamiliar with your work,
Oh, that's okay.
your former work.
Good. That's
Now
probably
you're on
great.
a totally different, but this has all happened very, very quickly.
Yeah.
You rose to fame as one of the top performers on one of the top sites in the world, and you made a ton of money and you got extremely famous. Then you quit it all. We'll get into that.
Mhm.
And now you're living a totally different life.
Yes, sir.
Take me back to the beginning.
So the beginning started about 5 years ago, if we're talking about going back to the beginning of when I started.
I want to go back to the beginning.
Ooh, like little Nala.
Yeah.
So as far back as I can remember, I have been in a big family. I was raised with 4 other children, and they're all my parents. But we were a family of 7. We weren't always like a religious family. It was probably when I was 10 years old that I had lost my house in a tornado. And then my parents went through a divorce, and we weren't serving the Lord then. But it was crazy how God brought us back together, and then my parents remarried within a span of a couple of years. So there was a lot of stuff that had happened in my life that was just absolutely crazy for a kid to go through.
How old were you when your parents divorced?
Almost 11 years old, because we had just lost our house, like completely lost everything in the tornado. I was living in Missouri at the time. And then my parents divorced because it was a lot to go through, honestly. It's a big family. And like losing everything that you worked for was just gone. I absolutely destroyed. So, and then having to provide for kids. So I can understand like the emotional strain that my dad probably carried to provide for his family. And then that was just all gone. So my parents divorced, and then they actually got saved during the process that they were divorced. You know, they really had this come to Christ moment. And so I was almost 11, and then they got remarried on Christmas Eve. So that was just like, it was really cool. So to see your family like reunited again. And from there, my family really started diving into being led by my parents, like religion, which was like Baptist. We were Baptist Christians. And so interestingly enough, I don't know how this even came a part of my dad's life, but he began preaching. So I can't even go back that far in my brain to when that actually started for my dad, but he had been a pastor, an evangelist for, I'd say like 10 years. So after all that happened.
So he became a evangelist pastor after they got remarried. Or so not before?
No, not before.
Zeal of a convert.
Yes.
Okay.
That was pretty much it. So became a pastor, was pastoring a couple churches, and the sorrowful part of that was that like some of the churches had church splits. So we went through some church splits through that like religion of being a Baptist. And it wasn't really the religion, I think, but it was just like the people in the church couldn't get along. And I don't feel like that's really Christ. You know, that's not Christ's heart, is for us to divide, but to build and have unity together.
Forgive my ignorance on a church split.
Yeah.
I am a mackerel snapping papist, a Catholic. And so we've had some splits. They're like historic schisms, you know, between the East and the West. And
yes.
So, but we don't have, I think what you're describing, which is, you mean like so it's a relatively small congregation, and then one day they just decide, we're done.
No,
some of us are
more like the church actually splits in half. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, lightning strikes.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. So far, so interesting. I don't want to hear her opinions necessarily on church or Christianity just yet. I always find parental breakups interesting, because when I look into the life, well, at least when on the outside looking in, when I see somebody who's like an adult actress, I always assume there was no father involved. So that split between her parents, however long that was, I'm interested in what happened in between, when it was just the kids with the mom and the dad went on and did his own thing. That's what I'm interested in. I don't know if Michael's going to go back and ask those questions, because I think that might be pivotal, but let's go ahead and continue.
So people like deacons or the pastor, and there's other roles in the church, they disagree continuously for whatever amount of time, and it gets worse and worse, and people tell their sides to half the church, and other people take other sides, and after that, the church really just cannot function together, because there's almost drama involved, or it's just other people's opinions, and people do not want to be in the church because it's uncomfortable now, you know, because everyone knows the situation, nothing's really being spoken about except for like behind backs, and that's just
right. So then
it's a mess.
So it's like a divorce.
It truly is, just like a divorce, and the kids are the denomination, you know, like the sheep in the church. So we went through a couple of those, and it was crazy because some of the people in the church just didn't like what my dad had to say. He's a very blunt pastor. He's very just like, will tell you what it is and preaches from the word of God. And some people didn't agree with it. And you know, I was really young too, so I don't understand all of it at the time. Like I was probably like 11, 12, 13 years old. And while so much had happened. And so it's like going through divorce after divorce after divorce.
Yeah.
And it's really hard because, you know, you get to know people in that church, and you might not fall in love with them, but they became a big part of your life. And then now you see them for something very different because they don't like your dad.
Yeah.
And then you feel this restraint from wanting to be around them, speak to them, or, you know, even consider their viewpoint on it because that's your father. So we went through a couple of church splits and moved around. And, you know, at the time, I was never even considering, oh, it's my dad. And I'm not blaming him in any manner. But now that I have Christ in my heart as an adult and not a child, I'm looking at things differently and just trying to test the spirit, because that's what the Bible asks.
I know you're an adult now and you became a Christian like 3 weeks ago. I would just hold off from casting judgment. I always feel this is the same mistake Kanye West made. New converts should not be the mouthpiece for whatever is going on spiritually. They need to take some time, number one, in the Word, and number two, going through discipleship, and take some time in the back seat. Because you have to understand, like when you become a new convert, there's a lot of emotions involved, and just the emotionalism behind that conversion will lead you to just want to like talk and speak on this, speak on that, when you don't have understanding yet. So I think sometimes it's just better to just not cast judgment yet, go through discipleship, etc. Then you can come back and speak on topics.
Us to do, you know, when you're unsure about something, test the spirit, look at the fruit of the spirit. And I've been actually going over that in my head, and it's not that I can remember one specific sermon of his or anything, but I'm looking at him as a person and his character, and you know what we did as a pastor's family. And being a pastor's family, I have to tell you, is one of the roughest jobs. You don't get paid for it either, but like, you know, it's a rough place to be in your life if your family isn't like in unity, and our family just wasn't in unity in any manner.
This is another area where my popery will give me some ignorance, which is priests don't get married in the Catholic Church.
I did not know that, so
yes.
that's my ignorance.
They're celibate and they don't get married. So there's a whole long historical conversation about that. But as a result, I'm totally unfamiliar with this idea of a pastor having a family. And I imagine that would be extremely
hard,
stressful, and very difficult, both for him and for the family.
Right.
Even what you're describing, I mean, the traditional understanding of the family, of a marriage, is as a symbol of Christ's love for his church.
Absolutely.
And so everything you're describing is just, as you say, a divorce after a divorce after a divorce. One of the four marks of the church.
There's just no unity anywhere.
Is the unity? Yeah, that's supposed to be one of the four marks.
How can you feel safe in any atmosphere, including your home atmosphere? So I truly never felt safe, because when we go to church, there's like some face we have to put on. You can't be like, you need to be the strong people for the church.
Right.
You cannot be the weak ones.
You're the face of the church.
Absolutely. And I have a really big issue with that now, like looking back, like being vulnerable with people is how people trust you as well. You can't always put on this strong face and expect people to trust you. Because I don't trust people like that in my day-to-day. Like if you're always the same consistently and I'm like, what's going on? Why aren't you opening up to me? Why aren't you being vulnerable with me? Because that's a good relationship, right?
A priest friend of mine once wrote that the problem with the modern idea of the feel-good religion, the real weakness of feel-good religion, is feeling bad.
Wow.
Because people feel bad sometimes.
Right. Absolutely.
If your whole religion is about just, strong face, happy-go-lucky, well, then you're going to begin to have doubts.
That's a really good point, honestly. But there was really not much of that. And if I did feel that way, it was at home in secret and private, And again, I did not have a good relationship with my parents, and I'm not blaming them in any manner. I didn't know how to have a relationship with my parents because I was a pastor's kid. Like, I don't think people understand the roles of a pastor's family. And I'm here to share it truly. As a pastor's daughter, you're kind of expected to just like be the front, right? So anytime someone's walking in the door when church starts, you're at the front. You're the first ones to get there and the last to leave. I ran Sunday schools. I had to be included in anything that the church wanted to, like there was people in the church who felt led to open up like a puppet class. I had to be a part of it because I had to show support. The choir, I had to be a part of that because I had to show support. Sunday school, Bible school, vacation Bible school, any program that there was, the family of the church is expected to represent.
It's like a political family, like a Congress.
That is such a great way to look at it, honestly. And it's so difficult because it's just like show face, show face, show face, show face. Yeah. And that's about it. Like you don't truly get to be like your own person. You're just your family. You know what I mean? You're a part of your family. You need to listen to your parents. And I'm really young at this point, so it's just like I have no choice. And growing up in churches, like I didn't have very many kid friends at all, unless they were children, because I was watching them in Sunday school, so their parents could be in service. So, which I loved personally sometimes because I got to eat snacks with them, and that was the best part. But and I love children, so it was fun for sure. It wasn't all gloom and doom, nothing. But now as I'm an adult, I look back at this and I'm reflecting. For the longest time, I pushed it away out of my head because it was very painful to go back through that and just like think about so many times where I struggled and there just wasn't anybody there. But the point I was trying to make was, growing up, I only truly had like adult friends. Like I grew up at 13 years old.
Were there not young people in the church community?
There were. We had very small churches though. It's not like mega churches by any means. Like maybe 100 people in the church, maybe less. Like it was never big, which 100 people is a lot. But
I'm starting to see the picture now. It sounds like that suppression to be able to exercise that social part of your mind, your brain. It sounds like that was suppressed. So I'm starting to see how she was catapulted so far. I'm just piecing it together as we go. Also, just for reference, I'm also a pastor's kid as well. So a lot of the things she's talking about, I do agree with. It's heavy. I understand what it's like to go to church twice a day, all the Bible studies during the week, the prayer meetings, when you're doing church planting, going to the other congregations and supporting their church, all of that. I know what she's talking about, so she is on point with that. Coming from another pastor's kid, but let's go ahead and continue.
You're catering so much to things. Like I really grew up at a younger age, and I do remember these two girls that went to my last church that my dad pastored, and they went to public school, and I was homeschooled like almost my entire life. I just could not relate to them.
Yeah.
They were worried about like what they were wearing to school and what they were getting, and I'm like, I just share my sister's clothing, so I don't know like what you're talking about, and I just never felt like I fit in with them. It was that kind of a relationship. So,
well, I've noticed friends of mine who are homeschooled, many of them were, they are much more mature, usually, probably because they're spending more time around adults.
Yeah, a little bit socially awkward though.
Sometimes that they have a little rap for that.
I've met some homeschool kids like that, where me and my siblings would be like, man, they're weird, like, are we like that? So, because they don't get out very much. But thankfully, like, we were in church, so we were just always being social with people, regardless if it was just mainly adults. But yeah, so I do realize that homeschool kids can be more mature, but also I think that's because of their studies are being very honed in on. You know, like in public school, the teacher can't speak to one student, they're teaching a whole class instead of really paying attention to that one child. In homeschooling, I was the only one in my grade and my mom was my teacher. So like I was very honed in on as a child.
Makes prom very awkward, but you know, that's...
Oh my gosh, I would have loved to go to prom for sure. I wanted all of that. I didn't even have like a graduation ceremony. I was just like, oh, you're graduated now, that's great. I'm like, okay. So I feel like I did miss out on a lot, but I would not take it. I'm very thankful my parents chose that direction. I don't only feel kind of book smart, but I do feel very street smart in that manner too. So I'm very
usually
thankful.
You'd hear the opposite. You'd hear a homeschooler say,
book smart.
Look, I'm really book smart, but I don't have any street smarts. And I was a public school kid. And you know, I got a little bit of book learning because it was a good public school.
Yeah.
But you get much more street smarts from public school than you do book smarts. But you're saying it's the opposite.
Well, for me, my dad is very, very street smart and my mom is very, very book smart. So I got both of their teachings, and I'm a very hands-on person instead of more of a bookworm.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy reading, depending on the book. But I am very hands-on to learn. So I feel like that's where my critical thinking came in. Like while I was growing up, I started working at a very young age, like just turned 15, got a job.
What was the job?
I worked at Hardee's.
Hardee's, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm friends with the former head of Hardee's.
That's awesome.
Maybe you guys worked together.
I don't
probably
know.
at different levels.
I worked in, it was when I worked in, I was in Illinois. Okay. So yeah, but I loved it. I love working so much. When I got my first job, I felt so independent. I bought my first car by myself. My parents didn't help with that. I wanted to be out of the home so bad, and that job provided those hours away.
Now, did your siblings want to get out of the home too? They did.
Yes, absolutely.
And so at this point, because I'm trying to track how things start to go in another direction. You and your family, you're basically all on the same page, doing the same kind of thing.
Yep.
This is age 15-ish, 16?
Yes.
Somewhere around there. Okay. So you want to get out, you want to be independent, then what?
Okay, so I was about 15, 16. I had worked at Hardee's for like 2 years. I got another job in fast food that didn't last very long because I knew I didn't want to be in fast food anymore. I got a job as a waitress for a breakfast and lunch place. And I loved that job. That really helped. That was when I started going to college around 18. So right when I graduated, I got right into college. And I went.
This is a local college, or you?
Yeah, State College of Florida.
Right.
So I went there for 2 years. I was studying to become a dental hygienist because I was like, hey, I like teeth. This is cool. Like, let's do it. Every time I went to the dentist, I had a great experience, and I was like, I could do this.
What?
Oh, he smiled big all of a
Who
sudden.
has every time I go to the dentist, they make my mouth bleed because I go once every 5 years, and then they yell at me for not flossing properly.
Thanks.
But you had a good.
I wanted to be that person
You're the
that
one
yelled
person.
at others.
A lot of control.
Yeah, but I'm very interested in the anatomy of human body and like the face and everything. So I loved my classes. Unfortunately, I didn't stay in, but it was not short after, I had gotten a job in surgery scheduling for an orthopedic company. So I felt like my medical career was kind of taking off actually without a full degree.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, and I really loved orthopedics. Again, I just love the human body. So it just kind of fell into that category. So
why do you think you love the human body?
I'm fascinated.
Do you have any sense of where that might have come from, or?
Our creator. I think, but at the time I didn't know it.
Yeah.
The absolute being a creation of his. But at the time I didn't think about it like that. I was just fascinated by the human body. And when I went through my anatomy and physiology classes, I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. And then I went through labs dissecting cats, and I thought that was amazing. And so
it's so interesting to hear you say that, because a lot of modern religion, they tell you body doesn't matter at all. It's all, it's just kind of mamby-pamby stuff in your head. But the ancient Christian writer Tertullian famously said, the flesh is the hinge of salvation. The faith is a sacramental faith, so you receive the Holy Eucharist or any of the sacraments. And the idea is it's a meeting of the physical with the metaphysical.
Wow.
And that's lost on so many people in modern life. But you're saying that actually, wittingly or unwittingly, was drawing you to the body.
Mm-hmm. I love the human body. I think it's artwork. I really do. Like, I when I started this journey on OnlyF, I was very pro nudity, because I love the human body. I think we're beautiful, truly. I have a different form of that love now for it's more, I love what God created instead of just nudity, so, and that was.
What do you see as the distinction?
Perversion. That's pretty much the distinction I feel now is like promiscuity versus, acceptance of something beautiful and seeing it for what God created it to be and how God wants it to be used instead of being perverted in it.
Right. In almost a kind of idolatry. Like you think, we could all name aspects of the human body that we are
prone to.
But if you, so if you consider that, say in the context of marriage, as it ought to be, and you say, okay, I really, this part's kind of nice, and this part. But if you consider that as part of the integrated whole of the person, that is then also a composite of body and soul, then that's all great. It's like a song of songs, and it's really good. We're not trying to suppress that desire.
Nope.
But if you make an idol, you have a thing for this body part or that body part, then it really becomes, in the true sense of the word, a fetish.
It does.
Like a fetish is a term that refers to pagan idolatry.
Yes.
Right, like you could have a fetish for some weird, idol statue kind of thing.
Of course, just like you can have a foot fetish.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or any, really any physical aspect.
Absolutely.
Which seems to be so.
In this moment, this is where I wish Michael Knowles would have investigated that. She said something that was very key. She was just pro-nudity. She just loved nudity for the sake of nudity. That's something we need to investigate. So where along the path, because that's usually something you hear kind of more hippie type people say. And Michael Knowles is obviously, he loves talking about philosophical concepts and abstract ideas. That's where he's going with it right now. Instead, I needed to hear what happened. Was it something when you went to college, did it have a very liberal impact on how you viewed the world? Or do you think this started beforehand? Where did this start? That's what I want to know. How do you come from the homeschool pastor kid life to being kind of a pro-nudity hippie type? But I hope Michael Knowles investigates this and doesn't leave this on the table. But let's continue.
Prominent today.
Yes. We live in a very evil and adulterous generation. So perversion is a very big part of that, I think.
So you're saying you were taken by the body and then led into this perversion.
Yes. It started slow, kind of, but in that me being lost, so I was in that job of orthopedics for 2.5 years, going on 3. It was when I got the opportunity to start OnlyF. And it was right after COVID had just gotten out. It was still a mystery kind of, but we were hearing it online. I was hearing about TikTok and people were kind of making fun of it, but it hadn't shut everything down yet. So this was super early 2020, January. I had gotten reached out to by someone on social media, and I was not big on social media at any manner.
You just had a personal
fitness
Instagram
page,
or something?
I was a nobody pretty much, very low following, didn't have a Twitter, didn't have like a Snapchat, didn't have a Facebook.
But it was fitness.
Fitness.
So there's also that time, you're into the orthopedics, you're into fitness.
I am.
Okay.
I really love fitness. I've been working out since I was like 18. Before my brother went off to the Air Force, I started working out with him in the gym, and it was just awesome. And then I carried all that over after he left for the Air Force.
I worked out once.
Once?
Yeah, it didn't take.
You didn't like it?
No, not for me, no.
I enjoy pushing yourself. I enjoy pain in that manner because I have a hard time before I met Christ, I have a hard time feeling things. I really do. And
what do you mean by that?
I feel numb. I felt numb. It's really difficult it was difficult for me to feel things like sadness. Like I felt like I never cried. I could get angry and my temper was probably a little worse than it should have been, but crying was like not a big thing for me. I didn't feel very emotional. I felt very numb to things, and I didn't have a lot of friends either. So I chose
bother you?
that.
Yeah. So
I truly chose that because I was sick of having people in my life that would just come to me and complain about things and never want to change. I'm like, I'm the kind of person that will tell you, hey, you effed up.
Yeah.
You should probably do something about that. I'm here, but don't come to me and just cry. And then cry about the same thing again and come back and do the same thing. I'm not going to listen after a certain period.
Are you a man? You sort of sound like a man.
See, this is a thing I've actually gotten asked before, but not indirectly. Are you a man? I'm definitely a female. I'm a woman from birth, and I love that. But I have very masked emotions, and I don't know if that's because of how I was raised.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Just a lot that I've gone through.
When you say you have masked emotions, is it that you have them but you don't express them? Or you're saying you don't even really have them? You are just actually kind of numb?
I do feel as though they were masked because now, since I gave my life to Christ, I don't feel like that anymore. So I feel like damage was done in my past that just kind of suppressed. And I felt as though I needed to be
investigate
strong.
that.
Yeah.
And I was on my own. So I could be on my own and crying, or I could be on my own and independent and fearless and strong, what I believed strong looked like. And I didn't have a lot of people in my life, including my parents and my siblings. And siblings are a funny thing because you want to kill each other when you're younger. And then when you grow up, you kind of go through this phase sometimes where you don't speak. And then when you're an adult, you're like, there's no reason not to speak. We want to speak and we want to be cordial. We want to see each other. It's amazing. It's an actual phenomenon to me. When you see your siblings grow up next to you, you take a little bit of a break. And then the next time you revisit them, in my case, they're full grown adults.
Right.
They're living lives. They have children. They've been married and they're completely different people.
So that's more than a little bit of a break.
Yes, it was a couple years, 3-4 years. So.
But when you were growing up, were your siblings like you in the sense that they didn't? No.
No.
So you were different.
A little different, but I'm also the middle child. So I feel like the middle child is just odd, just an oddball. Yeah. So
I'm also a middle child.
Whether that be due to no love or whatever that is, it's not that my parents didn't love me. They loved me in their own way, but it was do you know about the love languages?
A little bit. Okay. I always thought of myself as a Casanova, but I don't know the specific
What's
jargon.
What's that definition?
Well, I'm of Italian descent.
Me too.
Are you? Mm-hmm. That's why we get along. Yes. But when you say love languages, you're referring to a technical kind of thing?
Yeah, so there's equivalently 5 love languages, physical touch, acts of service, gifts, words of affection, and there's one more, quality time.
For mine, it's food for me.
Food, okay, that's somewhere in there. I love food too. I love to cook too. Love to cook. But there's this love language test that you can take. And it just kind of tells you what your physical love language is. Mine is physical touch. I feel the most loved when I'm physically touched, whether it be holding hands, a pat on the back, a hug. That is how I mainly accept and feel very loved. You have a love tank. Mine gets filled up by physical touch. Okay. So, and it's not sexual. It's completely just really nice physical touch. Again, it can just be a pat on the back or, a touch. But for everyone it's different. And so what I mean by that is like my parents I don't feel as though they loved me in the way that I feel loved.
Didn't give you a hug.
My mom was a very like more stern disciplinarian. She's so sweet, but it's not like, she's not like a hugger or anything, like at all, like doesn't touch kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then my dad being like respectful because I'm a woman, you know, doesn't do that at all, like will not touch like that. So, and I was like, okay, I get it, but like I just need love, you know? So, you know, the craziest thing is I went through counseling in my teenage years because I was acting out like crazy and couldn't explain it to myself. My parents didn't know what was going on with me. And I went to a counselor and she specifically said the reason I was acting out was because I was looking for love. And
when you say acting out, what do you mean?
So I was like sneaking out of my house when I was 15, 16 years old. Like sneaking out the window at like 1 or 2 in the morning when the whole house had went to sleep. Yeah. Meeting boys, meeting random people. I wasn't drinking, doing drugs, partying. I just wanted to be around people and have freedom. I had such a rush from sneaking out of my house because it was like the only form of freedom that I felt like I had control over. And it was such a dark time in my life, and my parents ended up calling the cops on me, and that was like the last time I did it.
How did you even find?
You cannot suppress social activity from your children. And I know this. This is why pastors' kids have such a terrible reputation as one, is when you try to suppress any possible evil thing, something you view or observe as evil or wrong or a slippery slope, all you do is it creates the forbidden fruit complex, which is if you tell somebody no, now they're intrigued. They want to test it. They want to touch it now. They want to taste it. You have to be able to give people the tools to overcome those things or at least navigate through those tough situations. Don't just isolate them from hard things in life. And I knew this was what I was looking for. So it sounds like her parents suppressed her from any and everything. So Michael Knowles is getting ready to ask her, how did you meet these people? So that's obviously the logically next occurring question. So let's continue.
Find these people if you're in this
online, like just random. I had it.
How did you even find these people if you're in this
online, like just random? I had an iPod that I had a phone, but it didn't have internet because my parents were like very strict about that. But I had secretly bought an iPod off of line, like Craigslist or something, and connected it to my Wi-Fi and was just like meeting people like that. And that was the most dangerous thing, obviously.
Yeah.
But I didn't care.
So you're meeting them on Facebook or something, or
Facebook or like some kind of apps, like a dating app or something like that. I can't remember specifically right now, but one was off Facebook for sure. I did not care. I was just like, or if I met them in person, I'd get their details like secretly, and then like we'd talk like that. But I just really wanted attention, and I knew it was like physically. So I have been like, I feel as though I'm a very like sexual, like hyperactive person. Yeah. That's what I told myself for the longest time because that's what I was craving. But I think truly it was like physical touch, but in like a loving way and not a sexual way.
How old was she when she lost her virginity?
But that's what the counselor was like trying to explain to me, was that she feels as though I'm acting out in these ways, like these dramatic ways to, one, get attention, and two, like just feel love, that love that I'm not feeling at home because my parents are focused on the church and not their kids. So like you can be a shepherd of the sheep in the church, but if you're not being a shepherd in your own home,
right.
they're turning into wolves over here, starving.
Charity is the most important virtue, but charity begins at
love.
home.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I don't know anything about running a family, so I can't imagine how difficult it could have been, for sure. I'm not judging my parents in any manner. I think they did the best they could, truly. I'm not blaming them or anyone for my actions at all. It was completely my choice. We all have free will, don't we?
We do, though our will is conditioned by our circumstances. And our
I agree with that completely. When I watched your last podcast on that, I was like, wow, speak truth.
I know, it's not a very politically correct view now because it's not a very liberal view.
Yeah.
But no, obviously, this is why education is so important. It's why we call it liberal education. Is it not in like the modern political sense, but in the sense that the way that we learn to use our freedom, to make sense of our freedom, is through education and cultivating intellectual virtues, but also moral virtues that are habits. And if something goes wrong in that instruction, you're liable to go wrong. You won't be able to exercise your free will.
Absolutely.
In a
and if you're not
productive way.
educated well on the topic, or which who is at any age, you're not educated on everything, but you back up on things that you were kind of influenced by. You know, like if you don't actively have a knowledge about it, you kind of kick in with, well, this is what I know, you know, this is what I've experienced. That's how I kind of feel about it. And again, it's not blaming my parents in any manner. I'm very thankful for my parents. But
something
it
went
really
wrong.
directed me, you know, in a weird way, for sure. I really do believe that. I'm really happy that, you know, I wouldn't take any of it back, because it still ended up shaping me into the person I am now. No matter what, like hurt, it's a beautiful thing.
You wouldn't take what back? Your actions or the way you were raised?
Both, actually. My actions leading up to OnlyF, my actions on OnlyF. Of course, I'm ashamed of it, and I do want to be very clear about that. In no way, shape, or form should anyone go through that and be like, oh, I'll just get saved later, or I'll just get off after that, or who cares about what my reputation is later. You should absolutely care about who you are, who you're going to be. And I don't think people now being influenced by it understand the direct harm it will do to your mind, your body, and your soul.
Oh boy.
So it sounds like you're saying you do regret it. You just...
The actions, absolutely. Would I take it back? No. And this is the reasoning. Because I feel like my testimony is very strong now. You know, in Paul in the Bible, or Saul, who turned to Paul in the Bible, was absolutely persecuting and killing Christians, you know, and holding the coat for people stoning the apostles, right? So he got radically changed on the road to Damascus, completely changed, you know, was blinded even, and regained his sight, but then radically got saved by God himself and changed and became a living, walking testimony to people who were just like him, or so many others. You know, he started writing letters to the churches, you know, bluntly calling them out or praising them for what they're doing in the community of Christ.
That's all beautiful. So Michael Knowles is leaving a lot on the table here. I needed a full exploration of that rebellious season in her teenage years, where she was sneaking out, getting phone numbers, meeting people through apps, social media. I would have asked her, how long until like you had your first like kiss, your first sexual experience? How old were these guys? Were they at the local high school, same age as you, or were these grown men? You said your entire social group, because of church, were like only adults. Were any of them like grown adults? Were any of them married? Like these are the kind of questions I would be asking, because I need to know, because she's saying physical touch was her love language. The way I interpret that as somebody who went into adult content is, and she admitted it, she said she considered herself hypersexual. So I needed to know that timeline. So I don't know if Michael Knowles is just pulling punches, trying to be nice, play nice, but I need to investigate. Let's dive into that. Please don't gloss over that.
And I thought that was so bold, but why I say I wouldn't take it back is because God could absolutely use me if I never would have gotten on OnlyF. I don't need to have that testimony to be able to reach people. But if you were a young girl thinking about starting an OnlyF and being influenced by this current generation to start an OnlyF, would you listen to the person that's never been on OnlyF or never had any direct connection to it saying, don't do it, don't do it? Or would you listen to the person at the top of the hill who's saying, there's a cliff after this?
Right. You might listen to both.
You could, absolutely, depending on so many different things. But I'm stubborn. So, and I'm one of those hands-on people that kind of want to figure it out for myself. I personally would listen to the person at the top of the hill being like, do not come up here.
Yeah.
Please, this is fatal, you know, other than someone who really doesn't have a whole bunch of knowledge on it and might not even be experiencing the feelings and whatever that person's going through, you know, a lot of insecurities. I say insecurities because that's exactly how I was feeling in my life when I decided to join OnlyF, about my looks, about how people perceived me, being someone online. Like there was a lot of pressure.
So you weren't when you say you have insecurities about your looks or had them then, it's not that you joined because you thought I'm hot and I can make a buck. You're saying I think I'm ugly or something.
I needed to be noticed. Yeah, and a lot of people want to point that out about me, like, oh, you just want attention. Even now, I just want attention.
Involvement is so important.
I want God to have the attention, full and foremost. About anything that I say now, it's about Him and not me anymore. And I love that. I'm so happy to have Him take center stage and me be in the back with a clipboard.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Cupio dissolvi, to quote St. Paul. Yeah.
So, but then
this is why fathers are so crucial for young girls, because they need to be loved by their fathers. They need to know that their father cares for them as a father figure, but that desire for affection, it has to come from the father. If it doesn't come from the father, is it to come from some young airheaded boy at school or some other predatory male who can try to lead her astray, which is why I want to question that rebellious teenage phase. That's bothering me right now. And also just this idea of you want to hear from the person at the top of the hill. The problem is when a girl heard you just made $9 million and you're telling her, oh, don't come. She's not listening to what you're saying. She's looking at your lifestyle and she's like, I want that too. Do I want to cry on the city bus or do I want to cry in a Lamborghini? That's her mindset. That's what she's thinking. You have 9 mil from this OnlyFans career that you're telling me not to join in, and I'm still struggling paycheck to paycheck. That's what they're listening to. But let's continue. Michael Knowles, stop leaving stuff on the table.
I was in such a horrible place in my mental. Again, not feeling much, wasn't crying. I went through quite a few really hard relationships that made me feel even worse about myself. And I understand that it was my choice.
This is before?
Before only, yes. So I went through quite a few relationships. I didn't have good friends at all. I wasn't in contact with my parents like that.
So you already had a falling out with your parents at this point? Before?
It wasn't as dramatic as the one when I started Only, but I was not like, I was speaking to my dad, but we weren't like good. And my mom and I just like barely ever spoke. So her and I have never really had a good relationship, although I do hope that changes. We still don't have a good relationship and I'm not quite sure why. But you know, in my mind, I expected this change to be like the prodigal son returning, you know?
Yeah.
In my mind, I was like, I hope that's something like what it's like to return home whole and not whole. He didn't come back whole. He came back broken, you know? And then he comes back to his home, you know, where he belongs and got an amazing welcome. I'm not expecting
a delicious fatted calf. Yeah.
Yes. And I wanted
not
that.
Not from the older brother,
but
though.
It did not happen at all. And it kind of broke my heart a little bit. But
with either of your parents, it didn't happen.
In fact, they're actually getting another divorce right now. So.
Oh, man, that's brutal.
Yeah. But it's okay, you know? It's okay.
Yeah. And God's overarching providence, all things will be turned to good. Doesn't make it any more pleasant at the time.
It doesn't, but this is human feeling, you know, and we all experience things. And honestly, I'm thankful for the feeling. You know, I'm thankful to be able to feel again. I actually praise God that I can feel things. I praise God when I'm crying. I praise God when I'm happy because it all belongs to Him anyway. He is our creator.
I rejoice in my sufferings. It's a very traditional
Absolutely.
view. Well, it's also downplayed in modern religion, which is that suffering is sanctifying because it joins us to the sufferings of Christ on the cross.
It does. Exactly. I just heard that yesterday too, and I could not be more just shaken by that. I was like, wow. When Christ was suffering on the cross, like He was able to forgive people who were killing Him. And that was so beautiful. Like he wasn't rejoicing in the suffering, but thankful for it. And I was like, wow, you know, and He changed the world, completely changed the world.
And created it.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to be like that. And I want to learn how to recorrect what I believed previously. I'm just really excited for this new learning portion in my life because I thought I was a scholar, truly. I really did.
Yeah.
I thought I had it all down. I'm like, I'm independent, I'm making money, I don't need a man. I am good to go. Like my future, my career, everything is great. Like I got a dog, I'm fine. So
Classic modern, like millennial Zoomer. Just like, I got everything. I got money and a
What
computer and a
else?
dog. What else do I?
Facts. I drive a Porsche, like this is great. So man, my mind could not be more changed. Oh my gosh, my soul is forever changed from that. So
you never had a good relationship with your parents, and they keep getting divorced, and it's deeply painful, and it's very frustrating. And now you've kind of gone down this path, and some guy reaches out to you, whoever that is, and says, "Hey, you should join OnlyF, and you'll make a lot of money and get famous."
Yep.
And then that happened.
It actually happened.
Which doesn't happen for anyone, but it did happen for you.
It was crazy because the guy was like a recruiter. I don't know if he worked with OnlyF. I didn't like stay in contact with him long, but he was trying to get me to sign up under this code. So he tried to get me to sign up. I thought it was sketchy, so I didn't use his code. I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I don't even know who you are. And then I started OnlyF. I was doing it all by myself, and I made like $85,000 the first month. I had worked my butt off for a month, and I knew that I wanted to create content on TikTok, on Instagram. I just like
content or just any
content. Like I'm a creative person, and I wanted to make videos for TikTok. I wanted to quit my job because my job at the time in orthopedics was going nowhere. I was not getting promoted. I was just kind of in the same spot that I was like 2.5 years ago. And I was so disappointed in that because I know I'm like a leader. I know I'm like supposed to be the CEO. I just know, like I feel it in my bones.
When I started broadcasting on the internet, I think I made $85 in my first month, maybe my first year. $85,000. So how? This is not.
Oh, it's okay.
I mean,
Please,
no
good
way
question.
am I. You're a lovely gal. I'm sure you were very good at it.
Yeah.
Hey, bro.
But how is it that the median income on OnlyFans is like $300 or something a month?
Something
Or
like that.
I think maybe even lower than that.
Yeah.
What was it about you that was able to make, annualized like $1 million a year?
The biggest
Starting out for day one.
So the biggest thing I think that changed my own career was that I had a niche in the system. 1, I have red hair. 2, I'm a gamer. 3, I love anime, and I'm a cosplayer. So I put all of that energy into creating Nala.
You're a weeb.
I'm a weeb.
Is that what is
Hardcore
that?
weeb.
So I learned that term because you're the second weeb that's been on this show. The first one was Archduke Edward Habsburg, the Hungarian ambassador to the Holy See, and the second one is Nala Rey. So you're into all this weird, nerdy stuff.
Weird stuff,
And
yeah.
that's what made you $1 million a year starting day one.
Yeah, I just think that no one was doing stuff like that on OnlyFans at the time.
Sorry about that.
And I was just like, let's try it, And I started in mainly on my cosplaying because my biggest thing that I sold was that I'm not just one girl, I'm multiple girls. Because
So
when you
cosplaying
cosplay,
is
changing
costumes?
hair, makeup, I wear fake contacts and outfits. So I completely looked like a different person. And so had characters kind of to each character kind of thing, like their own personality almost.
Okay.
So I was like multiple women in one.
2 for the price of 1. There you go. Yeah.
So that was like my selling point, was just kind of that. And the first month I was only selling like lewd pictures, and that was about it, and talking to them on only. I didn't get into until like quite a few months later. I was like really trying to think about it first because I was getting so many offers to start or doing more and more for more money.
So you were making $85,000 a month without, it was just naked pictures
Yeah,
basically?
That's
then
it.
why
That's literally it.
transition into
Wow.
having
And
sex?
sexualizing talk with them, but that's about it. Like from the comfort of my own home. So-
But that's never, so I don't know, knowing a little bit about human nature, I know that would never be enough for anybody because that's not how lust and desire work.
Yeah.
But one could imagine, you say, okay, I'm now going to make $1 million a year, and I've compromised my dignity, and I've given myself some reputational damage, but it's only nude pictures. These days, every woman sends naked pictures.
That was
from the time she's 18.
definitely my logic at the time.
And so why wouldn't you then say, $1 million's enough, no more? I'm only gonna keep doing this. I'm not gonna go further and make, full videos.
What's crazy is there was like a time in that period before I started that my parents had found out. And
how did they find out?
So it was a crazy circumstance. I was out to dinner with my parents, just me and them, and a waiter came up to our table and was like, "Are you Nala?" And I was like, "No, like absolutely not." And
no.
all my mom had to do was Google the name Nala. There's no other Nala out there, nothing. And it showed everything, like my Twitter.
So Nala is your stage name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yes.
Okay, so she had never heard the name Nala.
Nothing.
But this guy, also what a creep.
I was so angry. I was like, can you not see that I'm with my parents?
But even then, even if you were alone or with friends or something,
yeah.
If you're a dude and you see a actress, wouldn't you just keep it to yourself? Because basically you're going up and admitting like, hey, I'm a pervert.
Watch you.
Yeah, I'm a freak, man.
You'd be surprised. I have had so many people over the years come up to me out of the blue and just be like, "Are you Nala? Can I take a photo with you?" I'm like, you know what, sure. Like,
wow.
It's part of the business, unfortunately, but there are a lot of people who have come up to me, a lot. And so it's just like, okay, like, what am I gonna say? No?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
at the time, I'm like, I just need to be kind to everybody. They are my supporters.
they're
They're
paying
giving
your
me
bills.
money.
Yeah.
So what am I going to say and be mean? Absolutely not. I'm not a mean person anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's how they found out. My mom didn't know at the direct time at the dinner that was who I was. But then the next couple of days she found out, did research. And that was when I decided to move to California at that time. So I was already going to be leaving Florida. But it was so hard.
Why were you going to move to California?
What's that?
You said you were going to move to California.
I was in Florida at the time.
But why did you want to just
because my business had started growing.
Got it.
And I didn't want to be near my family while I was doing this. I wanted to keep it all separate. And I felt like a big fish in a little pond. In Florida, I did. And I wanted to be a little fish in a big pond.
Yeah.
So just to network and see where it went. But again, I told you, I'm a leader. Whatever I try to put my time and energy into, I do it 100%. And I will go hard. So what happened was my parents kind of disowned me, and I stopped talking to all my siblings, and it broke me.
Not to bring up a bad memory, but
okay.
You sort of seem to gloss over that a bit. You say, and so my parents disowned me, and this, but that sounds like catastrophic. I mean,
it was. We had this final talk the day before I left for California, and we were just out on my porch in my apartment. And my mom didn't say a word to me the whole time when I was, they knew I was moving the next day, but didn't say anything to me, wouldn't even look at me. And my dad was just kind of trying to come to terms with it verbally, but I wasn't saying anything because I was like, I don't know what you're trying to work out here, but I don't know what you want me to say. I know you disapprove. I just want to know if you still love me.
Yeah.
But I didn't ask that directly, but the one thing that my mom said before they walked out the door was just I hope you're happy in your endeavors, and then just left, and it broke my heart, truly.
Ooh.
So.
But she must have been in some immense pain.
Absolutely.
Probably felt a bit of guilt. Oh.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Bring her some Kleenex.
It's a very dreadful thing all around. And of course, they probably felt a bit of guilt because they are thinking of their own actions, and it kind of leads to this. And so, what do you say? Can I get your tissue?
Yeah, thank you. I think the biggest thing is that I've never really dove into that feeling.
Yeah.
Never talked about this. Because again, it was just something I was like, I can't even deal with this. I can't think about it.
Yep.
It is hurtful to think that your parents actually do have a line drawn in the sand to what they will accept and not accept, and will they actually love you past a certain point. And I guess that answer was kind of no.
Do you think it was no, though, or do you think they were just kind of
I kind of think that because I went 3 years without speaking to my mom. There was absolutely no communication, and except for she did send me a letter, an email, that was just saying that I had drifted far from God and that this wasn't his purpose for my life. And I was like, okay, thanks. Appreciate that. Like, that's great. I was very hurt by that because it just didn't feel real. I didn't feel like she was being real with me. I felt like she was judging me. And I don't deal well with judgment. I'm a very rebellious person when it comes up to judgment.
Oh, yeah. We could tell.
Like, that's just kind of who I am sometimes, which I'm not saying is right. But I really came at it like, I don't care what you say.
Like, that's what you're going to say to me?
Thank
After all,
you.
that's what you're going to say to me?
Well, I'm already on this path. Why not just keep going? And that point in my life, I remember that was when I was like, I have nothing else to lose, you know?
We have the slowest tissue service in the world.
It's okay.
Here we are.
Wow, I appreciate you so much.
We can just keep rolling.
Thank you.
That's one of the pause right there. Because this is the real side of this interview I was looking for. And this is the real in regards to adult content. When you talk to a lot of women that are involved in the adult content sphere, they're going to tell you they're bad bees. They're independent. They don't care. They embrace the lifestyle. But the reality, when you actually take the time to listen to a lot of these interviews, almost every single girl has some kind of cope, whether it's crying themselves to sleep every single night, whether it's trying to numb the reality of their lifestyle choices through drugs and or alcohol, the reality of feeling ostracized from family because a lot of them get cut off from their family members, mother, father, siblings, everyone. Don't forget about professional network as well, to feel ostracized and to feel judged from everyone who you've ever loved and known. That is the reality of it. And now that we're hearing here, she said she has a rebellious streak and she's aware of that. I mean, at the end of the day, she is the author of her own life. She's exactly where she is based on her own decisions. So there has to be accountability. We can't dodge accountability at all. But I just want to highlight this because this is the real in regards to adult content creation.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, not at all. So you have this heartbreaking moment with your parents, and then you move the next day.
For good.
Did it hit you, the significance of that at the, you know?
Absolutely.
It did, okay.
I was very hurt, but didn't know how to like express anything. I had no emotions to express with that. I remember standing in my shower, just like letting the hot water go over me and just staring at the floor. I wasn't crying, I felt nothing. And I was just like, okay, like, let's move on now. Like, let's go. Because if I let this, I always felt that like emotions could weaken you. Like in that, I really did. I don't know why, I can't explain why I felt that, but I needed to be strong for myself. And I knew that I needed to continue going on.
Do you think there's anything your parents could have said that would have gotten you not to do it?
Absolutely. I said that in my last interview as well. Like if you could go back and if someone could have said something to you, would you have changed your mind? And the answer is 1,000,000% because I know how I react to love, to true love. Like I feel the genuinenity in it. I feel
that's close
that.
enough, I think. Yeah.
Yes, I feel like if somebody, I don't know who, but a friend or a boyfriend or my parents or one of my siblings could have sat me down and didn't say anything elaborate, but just, hey, like, this is not it. Like, expressed the warning in this, like, warned me in any manner, because I didn't know anyone in the field, nobody in OnlyF yet. I'd only just kind of had people around me that were in my previous life, and that was it. But I didn't have any friends, like no friends at all. I was just kind of working every single day, and that was it, in my little apartment with my dog. Like, that was it. So I wasn't really like in the outside world. I was just kind of in all the time.
Just you and a computer, basically.
That's it. And my iPhone, like that was it. And like I had sets kind of set up around my home to do like different cosplay shoots and stuff, but that was it. Like my home wasn't even look like a home. It was like a big studio. So if someone would have said like, hey, you are worth so much more than this, or I was really struggling with insecurity at the time and thought that was like why I needed the attention, and the attention did feel good. And for people out there wanting to be like, oh, she just wanted attention, you're absolutely right. I wanted attention. Whatever that attention looked like, I didn't care because I just needed to feel something, you know? And I feel like I craved that so much, was just being able to feel something. And that's definitely a wrong way to go about it, but I did it and I can't take it back. But there was a lot of crucial moments in my life, like in that world, that broke me and continued breaking me. And then it was like, it's like when you're in the military. I've never been in the military, but I've heard a lot of stories like you get broken and rebuilt the way they want you to be built up, correct? So I felt like I had just been broken and broken and broken and broken and just needed to heal and get over it, like stuff it back.
So what's the progression?
So after that significant thing happened with my parents, I started, and it was only with my partner. And I do want to clarify something, not that it matters, but I get frustrated at the people on the internet saying like, oh, you have so many bodies. In the 5 years that I was on OnlyF, I literally slept with 3 people. And 2 of those were my partners. Like I was in relationship with them for over a year. So, because 2 of them did only, so it was like a part of our relationship that we just did only together and sold it.
You racked up a lower body count than probably the average American undergraduate in that period of time.
That's what I'm saying. So I was never about like sleeping around, but my image online needed to be that so that other people so the people that buy my content are what? Men. Men, if they think that they have a chance with me, they'll buy my content because they just want to speak to me, right? So I'm really good at marketing myself in that manner to think that they could potentially have a chance with me. I never marketed that I had a boyfriend. It was just people I was sleeping with. And that's how I would market my OnlyFans in the messages. It was like, oh, I met this guy at the bar. It's my boyfriend. Right. Oh, I met this guy at the mall. It's my boyfriend. But most of the time they wouldn't show their faces, so you really couldn't tell. So I'm a genius at marketing that way. I really was. Like, I knew what men wanted. I even read some dating books. Like, one of them was called The Game. I can't remember who it was.
It's like a pickup artist thing,
something like that. Yeah. And I wanted to understand men's brains to be able to do my work correctly. Like
she's
certain
not
kind
lying.
of male brain.
Yes, a different one for sure.
So at this point now, it's no longer just you're taking pictures and basically selling lust or enticing lust, and that's how there's now this layer of deceit because you're lying.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But
I'm selling a fantasy.
But are you justifying this to yourself? Is it sort of like, well, I'm an actress and I'm playing a role, or are you not justifying it at all and you think, who cares? I'm just doing whatever. And
I think a little bit of both. I didn't think about it that much at the time. I just knew I was in a world of fantasy. Like you're not even touching me anyway. You know what I'm saying? And it's a fantasy. Yeah. Right? The man is experiencing a fantasy with the girl that he's watching on screen. Yeah. You know? So I was like, I'm a storyteller. Huh. That's how I kind of looked at it.
So who's this boyfriend though? This boyfriend, he had his own only.
Yes.
Men have only.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They don't do half as well or even a quarter of well as women do because women don't buy, men buy.
I had a thought that I would start an and I would read Italian poetry. Fully clothed.
That would be beautiful.
It would be beautiful. Right? Now the problem is I'd be giving money to because they'd get a cut of it.
Yep.
So I could, but now you're telling me I would only, at best I'd do a quarter as well.
I'm sure that there is a crowd that would love to see you.
But that means what? I'll make 20 grand a month? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's not worth it.
With the amount of people on OnlyFans, I think you would have a good shot, honestly.
So he had his own thing, and that's got to be just for gay guys.
Yep.
There's no way it's women.
It was just called gay baiting. Yeah. And it was a very disturbing thing that I had to witness for sure.
Wow. So you're dating this guy who is doing gay or gay adjacent stuff, and he's your boyfriend, and he's your secret boyfriend because he's also your scene partner.
Yes.
And did you have this sense? I don't purport to know how female psychology or even desire work, but do you have the sense of like, this guy ain't Prince Charming. This guy ain't the man of my dreams.
I knew I was not going to marry that man. Okay. I just thought it was like more of a work relationship. It was like, cool, we both do the same thing. That's great. Yeah. Like, I didn't care. And again, I had this crazy feeling inside that I would probably never get married. because of like what I did. And I was like, you know, if I have to accept that, I just need to accept that. I did not by any means think that that was going to be my husband or anything. Like, I knew it was a short-lived relationship.
Had you wanted to get married as a kid or a young?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most girls, they dream of their wedding day.
I did, for sure.
And then, but at some point though, you start pursuing this thing because it's going to lead you to your other goals and it's going to make you rich and famous. But then you end up, I guess this is how a Faustian bargain works, the thing that you were aiming at, you end up losing.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, well, to have this life, which includes getting married, I got to do, and then, but actually the going to preclude me from getting married, but oh well, never mind, at least I'm still doing.
At least I'm still doing, in my mind it wasn't, I'm doing, it was like, at least I can be financially independent. Like, I was like, I made so much more money than my partner at the time, so much more money.
I would imagine.
And so in my head, it was just hard to see like a man who would be able to accept that. Like a woman making more money and being the complete breadwinner. Like, I could come into your life and spoil the F out of you. Just like everything, you know, could give you whatever you wanted. And that
I'd love a Patek Philippe watch would be good.
You.
Maybe like some kind of a nice briefcase. Or I'm just, you know.
I heard you like the Kiehl's lip balm.
That's probably the most expensive thing I have around
so
here. Those things are like $1,000 a tin. Yeah. So, right. So you're saying it's not even just I want to be financially independent compared to my family growing up, say. You're saying even compared to this guy I'm dating, this guy's a schlub. He's poor compared
Absolutely.
to me. And I'm so...
I had very little respect for him. Very little.
Fair enough.
Right, well, you're gay baiting. I thought that was really gross, honestly.
Weird,
But he didn't do that the whole
100%.
relationship. He had just started that almost by the end of our relationship. I was so against it. I didn't know how to feel about it. I was like...
How homophobic of you. Very homophobic.
Yes, of course, obviously. It was very hard to deal with for the short amount of time that I did deal with it, but I really didn't understand it.
But why, again, I don't purport to understand.
This is why men need to hold frame. Don't sacrifice your masculinity on the altar of female approval. Women will despise you for being a schmuck and not having a backbone and not standing on your own two. Always remain in your masculine frame, remain purpose-oriented, and don't do things because you think a girl will like it. Like, listen to her tell you herself. She despised him for the choice to do that. Like, that's terrible. And that is true. I hear that on OF, men, if you're on OF, it means you're going to be catering to a gay audience. So keep that in mind before you sell your soul to subscribers.
And female psychology. Why was it so important to be financially independent? Like, why not just, you know, you're obviously a charming, smart, good-looking girl. Why not just like go marry a rich hunk? And
you know, I was told that by people, including my dad. Like, you could be a trophy wife. I was like, ew. Do we literally have a Gucci bag flung in front of my face and be like, ew.
Yeah.
No, I'm a very independent person at heart, and I never wanted to be controlled. I have a very hard time being controlled. Like, I feel like a bird. I want to fly, you know? And I was like, I will not absolutely do that. But so many people that I met in my life were trophy wives or little, like, sugar babies. I was so...
Sugar baby. Yeah, I've heard about that on the Whatever
I
podcast.
could never. Oh, my gosh, never. I feel like I would overtake that man in a heartbeat. Like, I'd be like, nope. But
I guess... sure, you don't want to be just a trophy wife or something like that. But I guess in modernity, it seems like those are the two options that people think they have. You can either be totally independent, I am woman, hear me roar, I'm going to go make all the money, or you can just be, you know, the Stepford wife or something. But like in a healthy marriage, there is a mutual dependence. I'm very dependent on my wife. I consider myself the head of my household. When rubber meets the road, you know, I'll step up, I'll be the macho man. But in terms of practical life, my wife does a lot. I'm extremely dependent.
She's the nurturer.
I would starve.
She's like the homemaker.
I would be emaciated if my wife were not. Or I don't know that I actually physically pay a single bill in my home. I don't. Could you imagine if I were left with the kids for 2 days? What would happen?
Oh gosh.
They'd probably have me
hate
tied up,
self-deprecating
hostage, and they'd
statements that men make like this.
meaning, and beyond these very practical things, there are even deeper kind of dependencies that I have from my wife, and she has many from me too.
Yeah.
Not to. I don't
Of
want to seem
course,
like I'm
it's
being
a
falsely
unity.
modest.
Right.
Yeah,
you both
she-
bring a lot to the table.
Right.
But it's like it fits perfectly. Because
Right.
again, the wife is like the neck and the body, and the man.
Before she finishes this goofy analogy, men need to stop with the self-deprecating humor or just statements. It's just so tacky. No wonder women don't respect men. Y'all think it's like, this is like Ray Romano type humor, where it's always the women who are the smart, witty leaders, and the guy, oh, I can't do nothing with unless my wife is here. Oh, I couldn't imagine being left with the kids for 48 hours. Oh, I hate men when they talk like that. Stop it. Be men. Oh. Anyways, she's whatever.
Man is the head. You know,
Yeah,
you can't
right.
walk around without a head, and the head cannot walk around without a body.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's precisely, in fact, that's the perfect image for it. So, meaning at this time in your life, you think, well, I don't want to be dependent on a man, particularly this schlub that I'm dating. So, but did you not have a sense that you could have a good marriage? Where
at the time, absolutely not. I was just so.
What is that on her wrist? I hope that's accidental. That looked a little, I don't know. I'm going to leave that there.
Again, numb. I was just like, this is what I did. I need to accept there's consequences to your actions.
Sure.
I need to accept the consequences to these actions. And I had no idea I was going to get radically saved by Christ. So in that form in my life, in that period of time, I was like, you know what? I need to potentially understand that I could definitely be single for the rest of my life. And that was it was a hard pill to
Facts.
swallow.
So it did.
was
That
like-
saddened you to
It
come
did,
to that realization.
absolutely. I was like, man, maybe I should have thought about this a little more, And again, I've had people in the industry who are still in the industry get married, but I didn't want that. I wanted to be out of the industry to get married. I did not want my husband to have to accept that.
Yeah.
Like
Because what?
accept me,
Right.
but not that. Like I didn't want to be married and be on OnlyF. Like at all.
What kind of a marriage is that?
What kind of?
not-
I would not understand that.
One could, if one were in that predicament, one could have a proper marriage, but you couldn't do it. But you would have to quit only. You couldn't do it while you're.
Absolutely. Like if I was a husband and my wife was on OnlyF, I'd be.
It'd be insane.
shocked.
It'd be insane. Yeah.
It would be the insecurities that door brings for a husband.
And the
a
husband
wife.
becomes a pimp. He's just a pimp, basically.
That's exactly what it is. 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
And that's like you're encouraging it because what? Your wife's making you money? Is
Yeah.
money really that important?
Right.
It was to me then, but oh my gosh, my viewpoints have changed so much since then.
Why was money so? I mean, look, I like having money. It's nice.
Yeah,
But, and when I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money.
me neither.
At what
And
cost?
I
is the
have more
question.
money now, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. But practically speaking, I still wear pretty much the same clothes. Maybe my sweaters are a little nicer. And I still eat pretty much the
Cashmere.
same food. Yeah. Shaggy dog once a year. And, I don't know, I still drink pretty much the same drinks and smoke pretty much the same cigars. And practically, like, I guess there's a number on a
Right.
screen that is larger, but practically it doesn't, at a certain point, it really doesn't affect your life that much.
I understand.
Certainly-
It really doesn't. And I came to that point, that conclusion that, I was making millions and I didn't feel any different. I
Yeah.
could buy anything that I wanted and I still felt the exact same. And that feeling that I was feeling was empty. All that numbness was emptiness. Like
The reason why is because you became the man you always wanted to be. When you take on this path and you continue on this trajectory of, I'm a boss chick, I could do all bad by myself, I made all the money in the world, $9 million over the course of a 4-year OF career, you became the man you've always wanted to be. And now, because no man would marry you, the one thing about adult content is men will still find you attractive, men will still want to sleep with you, but no man is going to commit to you and marry you because of your past. A woman has to keep her past pure for a man to find her marriageable. So when she says she's gonna be single for the rest of her life, she understands that men will want to sleep with me, but no one's gonna want to commit to me for marriage long term. And that's why I found this interview so fascinating, because I thought that, is this Christian dive, is it authentic, or is it an attempt at trying to expunge her past? Because I know I just sacrificed my possibility for marriage doing this. I want to try to get it back. Is this an attempt to get it back? I want to be proven wrong. So hopefully we can get to that point in terms of testing her faith. But let's continue here.
Complete and total emptiness, and unaware of that, for sure. But loneliness, emptiness, not feeling fulfilled. You know, I was like a creator, and I was like, oh, I'm being creative. But that's such a lie. Like, that's not creative to spread your legs. It's not.
Right.
It's not at all.
It's not even procreative.
Not at all.
Contraception.
Absolutely not. And I went through this really crazy time where, you know, this was very recently, where if we're ending my only career, I was feeling that more and more on a day-to-day basis. And I had met my current husband now on TikTok.
So that's, is that news?
Yes, that's good news. Yes,
she's married?
It's very, very new news. I have a husband. I got married.
Oh,
Marvelous.
wow. Unreal.
So yeah,
And when did that happen?
this last Sunday. Yeah.
So we're filming this on, what day is it? It's Wednesday?
Wednesday. Yeah.
So, and have you made a public announcement about this?
Nope.
So am I like the 15th person to find this out or something?
You're like the 7th person to find this out.
Right. Wow.
Not even my
That's
parents
great.
know.
That's great. Well, one does
wow.
not congratulate a woman on getting married, because even though popularly people do it, but it's sort of offensive, because you're basically saying, oh, what, some man picked you? So really one says, best wishes. This is marvelous. One congratulates the man, who I haven't met yet. I presumably somewhere.
You will, for sure.
That's marvelous. So, and this was Easter Sunday.
This was Easter Sunday, Resurrection Day. What
Wow.
better day to get married? But we were ready. We were so ready. We knew months ago, like, we wanted to get married to each other.
Yo! I'm over here talking. She's not going to get married because she sacrificed her purity. But she found a man, and they're married, a secret private wedding that her parents don't even know yet. I hope this wasn't a Hail Mary, because I know how much women desire marriage. Once they start getting close to 30, women are different creatures. Their biological clock is kicking into high gear. They start thinking about security, marriage, children. I hope this is legit. I hope this wasn't a Hail Mary. I hope because one thing about women, they need to be able to admire and respect the man that they commit to. If a woman cannot admire and respect you, she's gonna treat you like trash. So, I mean, hey, congrats if it's legit. You met him on TikTok. I hope there's real substance, there's real roots involved here. And he's a real leader. So let's continue to see what she has to say.
That saying truly stands, where when you know, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I could not be more sure. Like, absolutely not. And this man was the one who introduced me to Christ again. You know, I have this past with Christ where, like, I was a pastor's kid, but I never truly had a relationship with God. I was just a pastor's kid under, like, some umbrella. And that's not a relationship at all. That's like religion umbrella. So for me, he was the one who started speaking to me and praying over me. We were just friends, like nothing romantic at all.
How'd you meet?
We met on TikTok, actually. It was crazy.
Is that the first good thing that's ever come out of TikTok?
Absolutely.
Might be the only.
1,000,000%. But it started as such an amazing friendship. And he lived in Virginia, I lived in California. We didn't like touch or meet for months. We only spoke on FaceTime almost every single day, all day long. Like, we got to know each other without any physical touch, which is like my love language. So that was crazy for me. Right.
But how does one meet on TikTok?
Okay, this was crazy. So he does like live battling on TikTok, and I was just swiping one night, and he's prior Air Force, and he had this like battle helmet on and like a bulletproof like vest on, It was amazing. And so he was in his like live room wearing that. And I was just so curious. I was like, why does this guy look like he's about to go into battle?
Wait.
And
you're telling me you marry this like Giga
quirky.
Chad Air Force like military guy, but he's also a total nerd who's like playing video games?
I'm so lucky. I swear, not even lucky. I'm blessed.
with your
yes,
interesting.
so blessed. But we met because I found him so funny on live. I was like, well, who is this guy? Because every time he got a big gift, he'd like throw his chair. I just loved his character. I was like, what? I have to get to know this guy. So we were just talking, nothing sexual at all, which was odd for me because of my past. And I had been single then for about almost 2 years. I had taken a huge break from dating anyone. I was just like, I'm done. I'm so done because of how my last relationship ended with the gay baiter.
The gay performer.
Yeah, the schmut.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we just started talking, and it was a couple months before we met. We met in Nashville for the first time. This week we decided to meet. Yeah, so it was so special. And again, he was not sexual with me in the least bit. He would barely hug me, and I loved that. It was something about that just like I was like,
a girl wants to pursue her man. Obviously, the man initiates, and he sets up dates and times and scheduling. But girls don't want to feel like a man is worshiping them. If you're over there, oh, you're so beautiful, you're gorgeous, you want to kiss her on the cheek, you want to hug her every second, she's going to look at you like, he must not get girls. Girls might not be attracted to him. I don't want him either. But if you are in your masculine frame, when you make her chase the validation from you as a man, that's what we're seeing here. That's what she's explaining. He made her chase validation from him. Most guys, especially all the subscribers that she interacts with, you're amazing, you're so hot, you're a 10 out of 10. And she's used to that kind of simp energy. And when guys give simp energy in real life, whatever, I don't care. Always stand on you. As a man, always remain in your masculine frame. That's key here. That's what she's explaining.
wow, like I was enthralled by it. I was so happy and thankful, but I got to love him in such a different way. And it was like being best friends first. And he even said it, he was like, you're my best friend. I don't talk to anyone this much. I don't get along with anyone like this. And again, we're both kind of nerds. We both played Call of Duty together, like while we were on FaceTime. And so it was the best.
I've never played Call of Duty.
Really?
Never. I'm not.
We're both big gamers.
Wow, that's cool. That's really cool. And then you meet up here and hit the honky tonks or something.
We stayed in 2 separate rooms. Like, we didn't want to do anything.
So were you, at this point, you were off OnlyF, or you're still on?
Nope, I was still on.
You're still on it, but you're prudish about the sharing a hotel room with your boyfriend?
Oh, we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. The first time we met, we were just friends. He had not asked me to be his girlfriend yet. So, which is, again, why I was very thankful.
This is this is really charming to me in a way, but you're coming at this point in your life, you're a pornographic actress. Mm-hmm. You kind of have some worldly wisdom at this point.
Okay.
But you're saying like, well, he didn't ask me to go steady yet. He didn't pin me on his varsity jacket, so we weren't But a boy and a girl meet up in the middle of the country. Probably it's not just to go get a milkshake. They probably like each other, and
we do. We really found out then, the first time meeting in person.
Yeah.
Okay, there's some feelings. I'm not saying there wasn't any feelings.
Yeah.
But.
Okay, so it wasn't just because there's something very charming about this idea that on the one hand, you've been kind of damaged by this awful career, but then you also have this kind of innocence to, does he like me? He likes me not.
That's exactly how I felt. And it was because of the way he treated me was so respectful. We were not in a relationship. And again, I hadn't been in a relationship for almost 2 years. And I was, if I were to get into another relationship, I knew that it needed to be different. Knew that from the bottom of my heart.
So put a pause there. Mm-hmm. We'll return to Nashville and the wedding. But then rewinding, you say 2 years, I was not in a relationship because I had this like weirdo pimp/gay
something
performer boyfriend. And so at that point you say, well, why wouldn't you say, instead of saying, I don't want to date another guy, why wouldn't you say, well, I just want to date a better guy?
Oh, that was probably part of it. But at the time, I was just so done. I was like, I really need a break. Whatever this break looks like, however long this break is, I'll respect it.
Did something happen? I mean, you mentioned all these steps.
It's just the relationship ended in such a weird and bad manner. Like, we were so toxic. And so it was just like, ugh, it was such an ick. Like, I was like, I really need to be alone for a while. So, and I wanted to grow, and I'm okay being alone. I really am. So, again, I'm an independent woman, so I can do anything. So,
but you mentioned, you say, things kept getting worse and worse, and there were these traumas and traumas that broke me down and built me up.
Yeah.
I assumed the breakup was one of those.
Oh, absolutely it was.
Okay.
'Cause it was a very toxic, like, year and a half with him. Very, very toxic. Like, he was much older than I was, like in his 30s, and I was like 23, 24. So I was just like, he brought in a lot of different kind of life experience that I wasn't like prone to or used to or didn't know anything about, and it was very perverted. So it's just like,
How do you mean, other than he's
sexually perverted, and just the way he treated people was very weird, and I didn't understand it because I treat people very well. I think I really do, because I have a
even at
kindness
that
in my
time,
heart.
did you?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I don't treat anyone with disrespect. I really don't. I don't feel the need to. But he just introduced me into a lot of like weird things. And yes, so it was a very toxic relationship. And so after that happened, it was a very breaking point for me too.
I think it was C.S. Lewis has an essay on sex versus love. I could be, it's one of those guys like C.S. Lewis. And no, I'm sorry, it's Fulton Sheen in Three to Get Married, Archbishop Fulton Sheen. And he says the difference here is sex, as we think of it, is all about the self, right? It's about self-gratification. It's about whatever weird stuff he was into that was perverse and whatever, with you. And it's just totally self-centered. And love is, willing the good of the other person for his or her own sake. So to what do you ascribe this weirdo's perversions? Is it just like brain?
Yes, absolutely.
Just that, okay.
Oh yeah. He had admitted from like multiple times that he had been watching from such a young age and never stopped. And just was like, I guess, curious or whatever. And at the time in my brain, I didn't see that as a red flag until the end, for sure. But it's such a big red flag. Like, his disassociation from what love and sex, it actually is not correct at all. So,
but that probably, you say he saw at a young age. Isn't the median age of exposure like
7?
10 or something? Yeah, probably
so
7
young.
or 8. Yeah.
Absolutely, it is. And
so that's true for 90+% of American men, maybe more.
Yeah.
So the problem you're describing is not just with this particular weirdo, but it's probably ubiquitous.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know what percentage of men that I've met that were that intense on that.
So was he was like a full-on, he just
full-on crazy.
Watch a ton of, not just performing it, but watch it.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Even down to say, like, when he even told me, like, when we were intimate, that he was thinking of other women. And
Jeez.
I'm speechless still. I have nothing to say to that. That's delusional.
Well, not just, it's very disrespectful, certainly to say it.
Oh, for sure.
And very disordered to do it. But also it truly then just turns you into like a
piece of meat.
Like a piece of meat, like
I'm not special.
Like a sex doll.
Yeah, I'm not special at all.
Like he could put like a picture.
Yeah. And when he told me that was very near the end of our relationship, but it stuck in my head so hardcore. I was like, so this whole time, I have not been anything much to you. Understood? Like, I get it. So yeah, that was.
Ugh.
Yeah, icky. Very icky.
Very icky, to put
Imagine
it
being her
diplomatically.
husband hearing this. Oh my God.
That's just awful. So, okay, so you give him the boot mercifully, and then that's it? Is that the moment where you say, all right, I got to start getting out of this thing, or no, there's more?
I stopped doing actively. Like because at that point I had made so much content, I was just like, I don't even care. Like,
So just passive income.
just passive income, truly. I really started slowing down on things a little bit. I really needed some clarity after that relationship. And I traveled a lot. I went to Europe for the first time by myself.
Yeah.
I picked up some crazy hobbies like martial arts, speaking Japanese, bow staffing, nunchucks, like weapons training and fight choreography. It was very odd. But again, I'm an anime watcher and I love fight scenes. So I was just like so enthralled in that world. And I took martial arts as a kid and I just really wanted to get back into it. So I started like spending time on my self-growth instead of growing someone else, trying to be in a relationship.
Or even the one time a friend of mine was making money streaming, playing video games.
Yeah.
Which was
I've done that.
And you've done that too. Okay, this is like a novel idea to me. and he was making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I said, why not? It's free money, man. I don't know. You're getting like if I got paid to smoke cigars. Actually, I do kind of get paid to smoke cigars. But that's a recent turn of events.
I do it all the time.
Right, I do it all the time though, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but he said, no, but the problem is, you spend a lot of time getting really good at playing the video game, and maybe you make some money doing it, but the skill is not transferable, and it doesn't lead to anything else.
It doesn't.
It's a total dead end. Kind of like
Absolutely, it is exactly like it's not a college degree. You don't graduate from anything.
You don't learn
You just wasted so much time on the internet.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like the exact same thing. It is a waste of time. And then the things that you're introduced to into porn, even if you don't go into like mainstream or anything like signing with companies or whatever, which I never did.
You never did that?
Never did. My thought process was I want to be exclusive. Again, I'd only had 3 partners in 5 years. So I was like, I don't care if I'm offered a lot of money. I'm already making great money. And I don't want to be out there like that. Even though I'm on the internet in that terrible fashion, I didn't want to be signed and then that stuff be used even if I didn't want it to be used.
Right.
Only it was like my full control.
But surely, whatever videos and pictures you made,
it's still leaked.
They're still circulated, right? It's not like you can actually,
I actually have a lawyer working on that now for me because they can write legal letters.
Whatever you put on the internet, like I'm doing now, exists on the internet forever. Again, this is always a sign of those who do not like the repercussions. They wanted all the benefits. You made all the money, $9 million. That's a benefit. But the repercussions, that seems to be a problem that human beings have. And a lot of adult content creators have this issue as well. They want all the benefits that they gain, their platform, the money, all the deals, the brand deals, et cetera, but they don't want any of the consequences. And they try to divorce the benefits from the consequences, and they realize they cannot. What goes on the internet exists forever. If you wanted to do adult content and you receive the money, if you don't want the consequences, give the money back. It's the exact same thing. But we still fight to have this world where it's consequence-free. That doesn't exist. That's a fantasy. You have to accept all of it.
Letters to the sites that have leaked them and be like, it's stated in my own that you cannot copy and repost this. So they could get charged for that. So I'm literally working on that right now with my lawyer to get that stuff off the internet as much as I possibly can.
Right.
So, and it's free to me, you know what I'm saying? They stole it and are liable for it. So, you know what I'm saying?
So you decide to stop actively making at this point, and you're not even
After the
posting pictures or anything?
I was, but it was just stuff that I had already had. Like at that point I had been on OnlyF for like almost 4 years. So it's like 4 years of content that I didn't have to do anything. I just throw it back. It's recycling,
right?
But it's basically called. And so I just kind of took a little bit of a break and was working the site, but not making anything for it. You know what I'm saying? So again, I just traveled. I just wanted to learn
Japanese.
Yeah.
Ni hao.
Ni hao, shushima means that, but that's Chinese.
Roll, right.
Konnichiwa, watashi no numae wa Nala desu.
Philadelphia roll.
Sensei.
And you do all this, but you're alone and you're not dating anyone. So then what?
I met my husband now, Jordan.
So that was it. That was the next thing.
That was the next thing. Some time had passed, obviously, but that was it. That was I took a lot of time off, and then I felt not whole, but I felt like I had gotten some healing and some real life experience to be able to, meet somebody and create a relationship with them, a friendship with them. And it was the opposite sex, but he had treated me in such a respectful way that I was able to respect him.
Right.
Like in no way that I've been able to anyone else. Because of the way he treated me was so loving, like true love.
Right.
And not about my body or what I looked like or what he could get from me. He never asked for anything from me. And he knew like everything from day one. I told him like from day one, do you know I'm on
Really?
Do you know I do this? I wanted to be very open and honest.
Probably save some time,
Well, if we were going to have anything, like I wanted this to be truthful. I didn't want to go into anything in a lie. I'm a very truthful person anyway. Like I was just like, hey, this is what it is. If it doesn't work out, at least I don't know you for that long and it won't hurt that bad, right? So I wanted to just rip off the Band-Aid really fast. His response was so nonchalant. It was just basically like, okay, all right. Alrighty. And then
did he know?
No, he hadn't known at that point.
Do you believe him?
He didn't know. What's that?
Do you believe him? That he didn't?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He had no idea who I was. And like was just kind of like crazed that I came in his life kind of thing, which is like, who is this person kind of thing. Yeah. And we've talked about it a couple times after and just been like going back to that point of when you met kind of thing is just so, it creates another spark again, you just get to really re-fall in love with them. But so he had no idea until I told him. And, his first reaction was like, okay, cool. But then, as time came, questions started coming. And I was all like, bet I knew questions were going to come. And I was very much so here to answer you honestly, because I want you to know. And so, once we started kind of getting a little bit more serious, like, I was like, we need to really dive into this. You know what I'm saying? But the whole time, he was like sending me verses, like Bible verses, sending me videos of him saying like, hey, I'm praying for you. I want to just like be here for you no matter what. You are my best friend. No matter if this goes anywhere or not, we're best friends. And he literally said this. He was like, in 10 years, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like I will be here in 10 years. Like, and no one, I have never had anyone in my life other than my family be there for me in 10 consecutive years. So I was like, what? Like, what is this guy talking about?
This guy sounds great, and I look forward to meeting him after the interview. The only spot where I'd say maybe he and I see things differently is, this has been a debate with my wife.
Okay.
I've known my wife since we were about 10 years old.
Yeah.
And she had a crush on me in 8th grade, but, star-crossed. And then I had a crush on her in 9th grade, star-crossed. But then we got together and, the whole story. I love every moment that I spend with my wife. Some married couples don't actually like spending time together.
No, my parents are one of
Apparently, yeah. But she and I really do. That said, she'll say, Mac, am I your best friend? And I'll say, no, you're not my best friend. My best friend is my best friend. In other words, the best friend is an office in my life. It is a role that I have in my life. And my buddy is my best friend. And maybe your best friend, maybe is the best man in your wedding. Maybe, you're the godfather of each other's kids. Maybe you're, whatever, something like that. But that's a role. And you, my dear, you are something in a way better than my best friend. You're my wife.
Yeah.
And there are different types of love and that involve friendship and erotic love and the divine love and all these things. But whatever it is, yours is a little bit different. I promise you I do not love him in the way that I love you, and vice versa.
I agree with that.
Right.
But for you and your husband, you would say, no, I did marry my best friend.
Yes.
Okay.
The only reason being because I think you can have different roles in a relationship. You, in marriage specifically, like you can be a mentor to that person as well. You can be in a friendship, a best friend friendship kind of with that person because like you're not always just like two lovebirds. You go through things. And
it's cool that she has her opinion on the best friend thing. Most girls will say they want their man to be their best friend. So that's fine. At least for me, I agree with Michael Knowles on this. The best friend, that's not going to be my girlfriend / wife. I mean, we can say that. We spend the most time together. That's fine. Obviously, I want to be friends with my wife. Obviously, I want to maximize our enjoyments and have a lot of things in common. Those are all good things in and of themselves. But my best friend is usually going to be a guy because men, number one, understand each other's experiences. We approach issues more logically and salute with more of a solution-oriented approach. And a very interesting point, my third point is, I think it's better to be more emotionally vulnerable with men than with your women, because when you're emotionally vulnerable with your woman, they tend to despise weakness in their men. And not to say you have to be stone cold with your woman. Obviously, there's a degree in which you can share with your woman. But you never want to come to your female partner with a, I don't know what to do kind of approach, because that's when the attraction goes down a little bit. I know most men will disagree with that, but that's why I think having male friends is so key as a man. When you're down and out and you have nothing in terms of a solution, you go to your male friends for that. And then once you identify a solution and you're working towards accomplishing that, then you can let your female know, okay, this is what I'm doing in terms of attacking that. So anyways, let's continue.
And the things that I find with my husband is that we take very long walks together and we love to talk about things. And when he has an issue or something, he comes directly to me. And when I have an issue, I go directly to him. We tell each other literally everything. And that is like a best friend. But also he takes on other roles as being the protector, the provider. Sure. And I'm here to be the nurturer, the homemaker, the supporter,
this is more so part of the female
emotionally
fantasy.
Supportive, you know? And when I say emotional support, I am so thankful that God truly met me where I was, because I now feel emotions. Like, it was crazy. Like, the minute God met me in my living room, I started feeling. Like, it was crazy, because it was a phenomenon of years and years and years of being numb and then feeling alone. And it was like a puzzle piece with a piece missing, and that piece was like the best part of it, you know? Like, the actual heart of it was gone. And I had this moment with God where I was like feeling all of this, and I was sobbing in my living room. Sobbing. This was after I had met Jordan, before we became boyfriend and girlfriend, but I was at my wit's end. I had everything around me. I lived in a 4,200 square foot home, which was like $3.5 million. I drove a Porsche. I had any designer bag that you could want. I have a ginormous closet. I have everything.
How much money do you have at this point?
At this point, I had grossed $9 million.
That is a lot of money.
Yeah. But man, that was the biggest point in all of this, was like, money doesn't matter. It did not bring me true joy. Like, you can be happy, like, oh, I just got a new bag, cool, but that's not joy. Like, the joy that the Lord gives you is like, well, one, he says it's your strength, but the joy that I have now is nothing compared to worldly happiness. Like, worldly things will tell you, like, oh, you need these things, truly, which is crap. Materialistic things are crap, you know? For me, that's how
Listen, I'm listening to her talk, and I can tell she's an intelligent girl. She's not, by no means is she an unintelligent, dumb girl. She's very articulate. I can tell she's intelligent. I believe she knew these things before she embarked on OnlyFans. You're saying now that money doesn't matter, the material possessions don't matter. I believe you knew that when you embarked on this journey. I don't think you were unaware of this. You don't come off as somebody who is airheaded or dumb in any way. She comes off as a very intelligent woman. So that's why I don't believe that. I think that what you desired changed. I think originally from the Genesis, you desired money. You desired freedom that only can come from having lots of money. And when you made that $85K in your very first month, that freedom was what you wanted. Absolute freedom. You wanted, like you said, you didn't want to be under the leadership of a man, the covering of a man. You self-admitted that in this interview. And you're able to travel. You're able to do whatever hobby you want. Like you said, 3.5 milli house, a Porsche, very nice car brand, your designer bags, your clothes. You have all of these things. But the way I interpret this is what she's saying is, the last thing I needed to complete the overall picture was a family. That's how I hear it. And money couldn't get you a family So she's saying money doesn't matter. I don't think she's saying money doesn't matter at all, because obviously it does. It gave her the freedom she desires. But money cannot bring you closer to a family. In fact, the way you got your money actually brought you farther away from the family that you desired. So that's what I think she's saying. I'm not saying her conversion is a false fire, as we say in Christianity. All I'm saying is, as of right now, it sounds very emotionally based. It doesn't sound like it's grounded in objective Christian belief. It sounds, I felt this way. I felt alone, and I felt how God changed me, and I felt how God moved in me. And it sounds like you're cleansing yourself spiritually to complete your overall picture, which was the money, the freedom, and a husband and children. That's how I interpret it. The last step was the family, the children, husband, and the only way to complete that was to cleanse yourself of your moral wrongdoings. That's how I interpret what she's saying right now.
I feel.
Yeah. I tell you, I don't.
Anybody on that manner.
I mean, I like certain. Actually, the main thing that I spend money on, I literally light on fire. Which is
and
cigars,
burns. It burns.
But otherwise, I really don't like it. And like if I saw a woman, like the thing you're describing is what I would say. I don't like it. I have no desire to have a Porsche. I have no desire to have a Prada handbag. I guess most men don't. But that kind of thing. And if I saw a woman walking around, with like rocks all over her hand and bags and in a Porsche, I would actually find that repelling.
Repelling.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I got to look at myself in like this magnifying glass, or like God did, I want to say, like with a flashlight in the darkness, and I didn't understand what I was feeling, but I just knew it was like this outpour of emotion that I had not felt in such a long time. So I was like, wow.
Emotions.
And what's crazy is I was in my living room, my huge living room, and the couple of days prior, I had gotten my Bible out to set on a shelf because I needed something in that shelving cabinet, and it was just out.
This is like an old Bible you had as a kid, or a more recent?
It was a Bible that I had since 2009. It was a birthday gift from my parents. So I wrote the date in and everything, which is why I remember that, but it was out, and I was sobbing in my living room, and I just wanted an answer for why I was feeling this way, why I never felt anything, and like why my life just felt like it probably wasn't gonna go anywhere, right? At this point, I'm like, what's the point of all this money when I don't have feelings, or I don't have a person, or I don't have kids? I have nothing but materialistic things that are cold and sitting in my closet.
And that will decay. Right?
Absolutely.
These are things that
like monetary worth is worth.
Why did I nail that on the head? She did everything possible. She was willing to do whatever it took to get the financial freedom that she desired in her life. OnlyFans, check. She's also willing to do anything possible to get the things that money cannot buy. A family and love, check, which was she cleansed herself of her moral wrongdoings. And now that she went through that Christian process of cleaning herself, now she dedicated herself to Christ. She got her family now to complete the picture.
Truly nothing. But the special part is that like I was sobbing, I was looking at my fireplace, I grabbed the Bible, and I just like sat there, and I was just like praying. I was just like, God, I wasn't blaming God. I was just like, God, why do I feel this way? Like, what is it that I'm doing wrong? Obviously, bling, bling, bling. But,
what is it? I just can't put my finger on it.
I can't put my finger on it. But it was this special point where God decided to truly meet me where I was. And it's not like he was far from me. It was that I was far from him.
Yeah.
And that I was like, God, I need an answer now. I truly need an answer now. And he was like, all you ever needed was me. So all I ever needed was him. I literally not only saw that in my brain, but like heard it. And that was all he needed to say to me for it to like manifest and to like to sink into my heart and my brain. And I just kept thinking that over and over and over again. And it wasn't in that moment that I had truly repented or anything. It was that I needed an answer, and he gave me an answer.
What's funny about that answer, St. Thomas Aquinas, a very famous story about St. Thomas Aquinas' life.
I love St. Thomas Aquinas as well, but good Lord, Michael Knowles, come on, bro. Anyways, if there was a royal conversion, the first thing that I thought of was the story of Christ and the rich young ruler. And he talked about all the things he did. God knew from the moment he approached he was rich, first of all. But he said, I follow all your commandments. I did everything you tell your disciples to do. What else can I do to inherit eternal life? Christ said, go sell everything you have and go follow me. And because he was a rich man, he walked away because that was just too hard of a thing for him to do. And Christ responded by saying, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the gates of heaven. And I'm thinking about this the whole time. I'm like, you gross $9 million doing OF in 4 years, $9 million in 4 years. Phenomenal. Throughout the story of this conversion, did you ever give the money back? Did you give the material possessions back? Because once again, I'm not going to doubt her religious conversion, but what I see is a woman who will do anything she can to accomplish what she wants. And while you had this religious conversion, why not? I mean, does that make sense? Is my logicking right now? Should she have given the money back? Just a question to throw out there.
If not the most intelligent person ever to walk the earth.
Wow.
And he writes the Summa Theologiae and many other works. And at the end of his life, he has a vision of God. And God says, you have written well of me, Thomas. What would you have? What would you like me to give you? And his answer is, nothing but you, Lord.
Wow.
And that's the same answer that you got.
Amen. It's so amazing how simple God answers you, and it speaks so much power and life. It spoke life into me, because I was like, at that point, I was like, okay, God, strip me now. Like, this is now time to like start peeling away the onion. You know, it's gonna make my eyes water, which I'm crying, but I need this stripped away. No matter what this next part looks like, I am ready for it, because I know I need a change. I cannot do this anymore. So I told Jordan, my husband now, that I had that interaction with God. He was so rejoiced, like had told his mom even about it. And his mom is an amazing mother-in-law to me, and is a full believer in Christ, and has helped me in this journey so much by praying, giving me scripture, being there for me. And it was truly a domino effect after that. After that moment, we had went to a new church, and it was crazy because God always provides, because they were doing baptisms in that church that we had this was the first Sunday we were going there. They were doing baptisms, and the baptisms were just ending when we got there. And I felt so heavily that God was telling me, go get baptized right now. I was in jeans and like a collared shirt, and I was like, I gotta go get baptized right now. Like right this very second, I need to be saved. I need to be rededicated to Christ.
Had you been baptized before?
Probably when I was like 7, something like that, so many years ago. But then they were done baptizing people. Like the guy was out of the pool.
Yeah.
And I went over there in like tears, and I was like, I need to get baptized. Please baptize me. And they were just so sweet and so heartwarming, and just took me in, and they were like, here's a t-shirt, here's some shorts, like go get changed and we'll baptize you right now. And I was like, thank you, Jesus. So I got baptized, and I want people to understand, like when you truly accept Jesus in your heart, it is like when Jesus died on the cross, the veil tore, correct? Like it was the separation was now completely divided between like the old law, was now no longer, and that Jesus had covered everyone's sins in his blood. So it was like this veil had torn. I was like blinking, and I was like, why does everything look different? Like this is the same room, but it looks different. And then when I go outside, the sun is even brighter, and the trees are even greener, and I can smell. And I was crying, and I have feelings. And I was like shocked. For the next couple of days, I spent just basically crying. Like I was so overwhelmed with emotion again. And I was okay with it. It wasn't sadness. It was just, I have so much emotion. And it wasn't like I'm PMSing. It was true emotion, which anyone who out there wants to say I'm like on my period or something, it wasn't anything like that. It was raw emotion and joy for what God had helped me get through and put the piece in the puzzle that was missing. And again, I wasn't dating Jordan yet. Like, we were still just best friends. And so,
but he's there.
He's there. Like, he was recording and he hugged me right out of the pool. I soaked him, but he was there full-heartedly leading me, telling me, like, I am so proud of you, Mama. That's why he calls me Mama. And he is just so supportive in that. And after that, like, my relationship with Christ continued. And then I felt a big weighing on my heart to delete my own and it started kind of.
Nonetheless, I'm still happy that she is, she's dedicated her life to Christ. You can't be angry at that at the end of the day.
Slow, but after that, like, once the Holy Spirit, comes inside you and like really resides with you, you really start feeling conviction for things that like are wicked inside of you. Yeah. And I asked God, like, what is it that I can do? Every day it was like more my prayer, like, what is it that I can do to be better?
What's curious about this to me is you mentioned, well, at this point, the Holy Spirit is with me. But obviously the Holy Spirit was there with you previously because he spoke to you.
Yes.
And the traditional view, the reason I asked about if you had been baptized earlier is the traditional view is that one is baptized once for the forgiveness of sins. But yet this second expression, of the sacrament clearly had at the very least, a psychological effect on you. Meaning you said, because we're incarnate creatures, because the body matters, right? So you're saying, I've come through this, I'm sopping wet, and I see in 3D now, and everything's vivid and colorful, and I feel God in an even closer way, but he was there talking to me before, and I've got to delete my own. So at this point, you still had your OnlyFans.
Yeah.
But you weren't producing new content, but it was still there.
Anything.
Making you money.
The biggest thing about when I got baptized when I was 7 was, 1, I barely remember it. And 2, I was 7. Like, how many sins was I doing other than potentially lying to my parents about certain things and stealing a cookie but I was 7. Like, I really don't remember being 7 years old. So, and it wasn't my relationship with Christ. I remember my parents being like, all their kids are getting baptized, and that was it. Like,
I don't remember my baptism either.
Oh, okay.
I don't. I was about 7 days old, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains.
But I don't. Maybe at some point I'll have a recollection. but so it seems to me you're saying, I've lived this whole life, and I felt that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like you're saying you felt you couldn't have a connection with him. You had all these sins were accumulating.
Ask if she deleted her OnlyFans, please.
Valve to
sin. If you're living in sin, sin feels fine. You don't feel convicted for it because you're like, why? The Holy Spirit wasn't gone from me. It was I was not listening to the Holy Spirit.
And you had severed. I mean, you're describing severing sanctifying grace, right? I mean, you just kind of go along with it, and you think,
it feels good. Pleasure and sin feels good for a time, right? But like it like when that veil like tore, it was my relationship with Christ. Like, it wasn't me being 7 years old because my parents told me to get baptized kind of relationship. It was, I choose Christ. I choose to believe in Jesus Christ, that he died on the cross for my sins. Father, I'm sorry for my past. I'm sorry for what I'm currently doing, and I'm sorry for my future sins. But that's the amazing thing about Christ, is because he died on the cross for not just our past sins, but our present and future sins. Like, he knew we were gonna mess up over and over and over and over again. Yep. But it's not like a one-time, I'm sorry. It is you repent, and then you listen to the Holy Spirit to live in Christ's steps. It is not like, I'm forgiven, go back. Right. It is not that at all.
In antiquity, sometimes emperors and rulers would delay baptism because, there are 7 sacraments traditionally in the church, one of which is reconciliation, confession, you get on your knees and you receive absolution. But baptism, in antiquity, sometimes baptism would be delayed or confession would be delayed.
For what reason?
Because there was a sense that, you couldn't really do it all the time. And so you wanted to, if you're a Roman emperor, say, you might be doing some bad things. It might happen. Yeah. And so there was a kind of a sense of, all right, I'm going to delay this a little bit. At least that's how we think of it historically. But to your point, no. You receive baptism, and you've repented and you've changed your mind. But there's still going to be an inclination to commit sins, and you actually almost certainly will commit sins.
Absolutely.
And so there has to be the Catholic traditional view is that there's the sacrament of reconciliation.
Right, come on, bro.
But even if you ignore the sacramental view for a second, it's like a continual repentance, right? That you're living in a new way.
Right, you are, and you are made very aware of your sins because the Holy Spirit is with you and convicting you of them.
Yeah.
But it's not like, oh, I messed up and now like I've already asked for forgiveness, I will not be forgiven.
Yeah, we're done.
You need to continue asking for forgiveness and growth and ask God to help you grow in the areas that you continue to sin in, whether it be sexual or lying or hopefully not murdering people. Like, God help me stop murdering people.
Many women have
for
abortion, right?
Oh my gosh.
And many are not even aware
Absolutely.
of it. Yeah.
Oh, that's a topic.
Yeah, but I mean, it's in a way where you could do it. You could be only vaguely aware that you're doing it, and then
right. But it's being downplayed so much in your brain because you don't want to believe it.
Right,
that you're actually doing that.
But then imagine the horror. You wake up and you think, oh man,
I've murdered 4 babies.
But they're my babies too, and that so there's really no limit to the. I mean, this is partially why it's a quirk of history that many of the greatest saints thought they were the worst sinners. And we look at them and we say, oh, you were wrong. But actually, probably they had a better perception of sin.
Yeah.
Living much more in accordance with God's will.
When you live under Christ's ruling, you understand and like you see sin for what it is. Like when Paul says, I'm the chiefest of sinners, I feel very similar to that because of what I was doing, what I have done. I'm like, wow, I am such a sinner. Like, I feel below dirt.
So then what do you do with... You've been living this particular lifestyle and cultivating all sorts of habits and tastes and desires. Even put the sex stuff aside for the handbags and the Porsche and the money or whatever. How much money are you walking away from at this point?
Wow, not a lot, especially after taxes. So I haven't paid taxes this year yet, but I made like $2.6 million last year. So I have to pay taxes on that.
Oh.
So that'll be fun.
Depending on how the whole thing goes.
Yeah, thankfully I was very smart with my money since the beginning, as in investing it in like a brokerage account, life insurance policy, stuff like that.
That's good.
I was very in tune with that part because I do know so many people when they make money like this, they blow it. And I could never understand why. Yeah. But a lot of my reasoning for doing this, making this kind of money was like, oh, I'm providing for my future, so. But
I mean even. So you're walking away from a lot of money, but also you've cultivated all these habits and desires over the years. I'm just speaking from my own experience.
Yeah.
I was an atheist for 10 years, lived like kind of a, not a liberal, but like a libertarian.
Okay.
So, you do you kind of stuff.
Understood, yeah.
Go out, hit the bar, hit the parties.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very difficult to tamp down a bad habit. And it's very difficult to cultivate virtue.
I definitely have an opinion on that. So it's not even an opinion. I think that when Christ really saved me, or when I accepted Jesus into my heart, those bad habits like got cut. It was crazy.
Did they disappear or they?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. And
that's impressive.
I know that's crazy to think of, but when you're living fully in sin and then you get saved, it is literally black and white. You know what I'm saying? I find those things repelling now.
Yeah.
If
overnight.
I'd say it took like a full month of
Still
really, because like I was asking God, like, okay, like in Psalm 139, it talks about instead of calling out what's wrong with your neighbor and asking God, like, fix my neighbor, ask what like is wrong with you kind of thing, but like where's like draw out the wickedness in my heart so that I can get closer to Christ. So that's what I was doing. And he spoke to me, like even about down to like my clothing. Like I was like, I need to be more modest. Like I am not here to make others lust. Like not even just online, but when I walk in person and in public, I need to be modest. Yeah. And that was something I could never capture in my brain. But like now it is I'm so aware of it. Yeah. Like I find myself like, even when I'm shopping online, I'm so critical of it. Like I love it. I'm so happy about these like changes.
I'm happy to hear that.
I literally sold all of my designer bags. I sold my Porsche. I literally drive a Jeep now. I'm very, very happy. It's a great car. I love that car. I'm an off-road girl, so I love it. But
it's funny you mentioned the clothing. I remember I was like 13. I was taking a standardized test in school.
Love
and
those.
all these girls in class at this time, the Solo company had these very tight pants that all the girls started wearing. It's like they were wearing tights, but it was supposedly pants. And I remember looking around, we're all trying to take this test, and I said, I have an unfair disadvantage here. Because all these girls are like barely wearing anything. It's all like the skin tight stuff. And I'm a boy in puberty. I'm a teenage boy. And I'm gonna be, they're not distracted by my, like leather jacket, but I am very distracted. This is wrong. This is wrong for them to do this. I don't think they did it intentionally.
No, I love that point of view though. I'm so interested in the male point of view, because it talks about how like men fall in love because they're seeing, women fall in love because they're hearing. Right? So like, that's why women wear makeup, they dress nice, they want to be appealing to the eyes of men, correct? So like, and women can be fooled by men sometimes by what they say.
Women fall in love because they're hearing. Well, this justifies all my cigars over the years, so I can deepen my voice a little. I've always understood that men are more visual, but I'd never understood that about women. They're more.
I think so. We'll think about like words of affirmation. Like women want to be told they're beautiful and blah blah blah. Like, does it really matter to you very much about if like your wife calls you handsome? I'm sure it means something.
All the time. She needs to wake me up. She says, "Hey, hunk, get over here, you sexy you."
Come open this bottle of pickles for me, you big alpha male.
I want to hear that every day. Yeah. No, it's not top on the list. You're right. It's not top on the list.
Like women care about what a man looks like. But it's not like what we fall in love with. Right? Like the swooning of it all kind of thing. So
that's a great insight. And I'm impressed by the notion that the bad habits go away overnight. For me, I had a kind of when you say I had this moment like in my room where I had a very similar experience.
Really?
I was in New York. I was in the Bronx, actually. It was kind of the culmination of a few things. But then there really was this moment. I called my grandmother. I said, I just had an epiphany. Went home and I made a sauce. I was just kind of processing everything and opened up a Bible. And it was one of those moments. But there was a disconnect for me between intellectual conviction. Knowing
like logic.
Logic and seeing things differently. The world actually looked different. But the fact that I cultivated certain habits and desires, especially living in New York where, everyone goes out and parties and drinks and gallivants all night. The habits were a little slower than the intellect, and which is a view that, Aristotle observed way back when, which is that that you learn the intellectual virtues through teaching, but the moral virtues you got to kind of just do them, and it takes a little time. So now we're talking about a reversion that was 10 years ago for me. So happy to say, I feel much more in control of my will now. But at first, I felt actually something of a chasm between what I now saw to be true, incontrovertibly, and my own behavior, or at the very least, my own desires.
Understood.
But not for you.
So it's funny you speak about logic, because I went through this very tough point before my OnlyFans was gone, was that I'm trying to think logically and spiritually, right? So I'm a baby Christian again, and I'm like, but I need to make money. Logic.
Yeah.
You need to be financially stable somewhat. That's my logical side.
I mean, you've done pretty well.
Spiritual side. Right.
You might maybe not retire, but you could maybe, you could take a few months off.
Not retire for sure, but for sure, maybe a year.
Yeah.
So, but for me, like that was my logic, my humanly logic, being like, oh, I need to make money, like this fear almost about the future and what it looked like without this kind of finances. And so this is what I encourage other women in, because I've had quite a few women after I came out of only being like, hey, how do I quit only? And I know this is something they're thinking about, finances. This is the whole point of getting on only, is for finances, correct?
Well, is it?
Oh, okay. I think it's a very split conversation there, but like attention and finances,
Feeling love that you
feeling
didn't have.
loved, whatever rebellion they're coming out of or going into, yes, for sure. But finances are a key factor, right? Because I don't know anyone who is in the OnlyFans industry doing it for free. I don't know one person. I really don't. So, but for me, that was the logic side. And then there's the spiritual side where God is literally telling me to let it go and let God. But I don't mean that as a cliche, but like, how can He bless me when I'm holding on to the things of this world and yet proclaiming to be a Christian? You know, how can I be wearing sinful looking, immodest clothing and being like, I live for Christ.
Yeah.
When other men are watching me on like when I would just walk into Walmart or something and lusting after me.
Yep.
Like I couldn't help it if I'm wearing baggy clothes and they're like, wow, I don't know how that would work, but like if I'm just wearing baggy clothes and I'm just, chilling and they're lusting, that's not my fault. I've done everything at that point to cover myself and be modest. But it's funny, logic does not always align with the spiritual, and it just doesn't.
I find that it does. In the opening lines of the Gospel of St. John, in the beginning was the Logos, the Word.
And the Word was with God.
And the Word was with God and was God. But the word for word there is Logos, from which we get logical. So at least in my view, I'm not a theologian.
Ooh, break it down.
But it seems to me that reason and faith are, in fact, united.
Right.
And certainly in Christianity. And so if there ever appears to be a discrepancy between the two, you've got an error in one or the other. So I'm not disputing the feeling that you're describing, but it does seem to me that like there's a modern poem, I forget the name and who wrote it, that observes that sin is so much, there's all this suffering and all this terrible stuff it causes, but it's just so stupid. It's such a waste of time. It's so illogical. If you can think about sins, especially like the weird sex stuff, and you can just kind of zoom out, take the pain and the suffering, and just kind of look at it, the people look absurd, right? It's like a guy in his dark room with the blinds looking at like you making a funny face.
Yeah.
Overall, I think this was a dope interview. At this point, I think Michael Knowles is just curious about this dude. He loves intellectual conversations, as we all do. He missed on some important probing questions he should be asking. With that being said, I found this a very intriguing interview. Just to hear her conversion story, I was surprised to hear she got married already. But at the end of the day, I've learned a lot. She made a lot of money. She was able to give herself the life that she never had. She's always wanted, bought nice cars, nice material possessions. She truly desired a husband, a family. She's married now. She became a Christian. At the end of the day, I don't know her faith. I don't know her heart. It's not my job to know her heart. That's God's position. He's the only one that can see the true intentions of men and women. So, of course, we got to pray for her, too. We pray for her new conversion. I pray she finds discipleship. She finds a good church. She's being led spiritually by her husband. There are some things I question whether or not she actually quit OnlyFans for good. I heard that, at least from the streets, the Twitter streets, that she still had it and she actually created a Christian line of clothing. So I don't know. I can't judge from afar. I've never spoken with her or met her. But you guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. What do you guys think? What do you guys hope to see? As long as people can turn, Christ said himself, it's usually the prostitutes, those who are homeless, those who are the tax collectors or the corrupt businessmen who come to him first, and the Pharisees and the religious rulers and experts who are the slowest to come to him or don't come to him at all. So at the end of the day, I hope and I pray that her conversion is legitimate. So make sure you guys leave your thoughts down below. Like this video, because this was a dope interview. Pretty long, but pretty dope as well. And make sure to subscribe. Let's keep this movement going. Remember, Christ is king above all. In Jesus' name, I pray, amen.